Welcome to Robert Bellissimo at the Movies, where we explore all things cinema. Today I'm going to be reviewing Salon Kitty, which was released in 1976. This was directed by Tinto Brass. The screenplay was by Ennio Di Concini, Maria Pia Fusco, and Tinto Brass as well. It starred Helmut Berger, Ingrid Thulin, and Teresa and Savoy. I'll read a brief synopsis as well, for those of you who haven't seen it, or if you haven't seen it in a while. After an SS officer wiretaps a brothel and replaces its prostitutes with spies to obtain blackmail on the clientele, the madame and a vengeful young hooker seek to bring about his downfall. Okay, so this is not an easy film to see. It's not as some of these films that came out in the late 60s and 70s, these exploitation films, these films that dealt with the war, World War II, and Nazism in a transgressive way, are very hard to watch, and I really like a lot of them, like The Damned, The Night Porter, Salo. This one is not as challenging to watch. It's certainly challenging to watch, but it's not as challenging to watch as those films. And I was surprised, because Tinto Brass, who's did so many of these sleazy movies, I thought it was going to be, that's a part of it, these really trashy, sleazy sex scenes. There's a lot of full frontal nudity from both men and women in the film. But it has a really compelling, that's a part of it, but it has a really compelling story at the heart of it. And I thought the synopsis on IMDb pretty much nailed it on the head as to what is going on in the film. So we see, who Helmut Berger plays, this Nazi, Helmut Wallenberg. He is in charge of this brothel that he's about to start, and he takes over another brothel that this madame, played by Ingrid Thulin, Kitty Kellerman, that she runs. He knocks her brothel down to use the building in order to create his own brothel, but really his purpose is to spy on officers, on his own people, on Nazis, for, and you wonder why. And it's like, okay, well, as the film progresses, you see that he's suspicious of everyone, paranoid, if anyone's committing treason, if anyone's against him. And the film, so his lust for power is so strong as well, that he wants to take over and kill many of its leaders, the Nazis' leaders. And what also makes these kind of movies even harder to see is that the films, this film in particular, is told particularly from the Nazi perspective. We don't have a character like in Schindler's List who is, changes for the better. It's nothing like that, or where we get like the perspective from the Allies. We never see anyone other than the Nazis in this film, and so it's Nazis really against one another. There's everyone there's no heroes at the end of the film. Everyone is still a Nazi, so it's hard to sit in that. It's uncomfortable, and so this brothel that he starts, the film, Tinto Brass and the screenwriters were clearly saying that, that the message is that how hypocritical the Nazis were, because they were all about this sort of purity and sex is pure. It's very traditional in the way they looked at sex as purely for breeding, with their quote unquote master race, that it should only be in order to create more children, and nothing more than that, nothing for pleasure. And so, but here they are creating this brothel because he knows that he can get the men to talk through women seducing them. So they hire all of these women, and none of them are prostitutes. They compare, when they line them up, and the Nazis basically say to them, this is going to be like killing someone. The first time you do it, maybe you want to puke, maybe you have insomnia. By the third time you do it, you still have a good appetite, and everything's fine basically. And these are not, so they basically condition them, and basically try to normalize what they have to do in order for them to be able to seduce these men and be comfortably feel like they're prostitutes. And one scene that I did find quite disturbing is they try to see who would really be up for it. And at first they have this sort of, again, because they looked at, like, they get these men and women all together, and it's like it's this very strange, almost Olympic-like way of, like, these choreographed sex scenes. Like, they're not even actually really having sex. Again, I think it goes to their view of that this is something, this is, sex is quote unquote pure, and this is a job that you have to do. And I think they just wanted to see how they would move. How about it's like training, basically. It's very, very strange. But one scene that's really quite disturbing is that they get people that are on their way to the camps, like people who have different disabilities, or Jewish people, and they have the women have sex with them. They have women have sex with each other, and you see some women are, like, repulsed by it. They can't do it. And you see Helmut Berger's character is saying, like, well, whoever can't do it will be disciplined, right? So it's and again, like, a lot of the scene, there's they talk about sex as being purely for to give birth to children, and these Nazis are clearly perverted, because a lot of the sex scenes they have are like these big orgies, or they're S&M style in nature. Not all of it, but a lot of it is. Some of it is quite S&M in my view, and the one soldier that ends up falling in love with one of the spies, one of the prostitutes. Her name is Margarita, played by Teresa and Savoy. He falls in love with her, and she falls in love with him, and then he actually says he finds Hitler evil, and he's going to change sides, right? And so of course he winds up killed, which then gives her the thirst for revenge to have Helmut Wallenberg killed, because he's the one who killed her lover, right? So she finds a way with the Madame. She tells the Madame, because the Madame does not know, Madame Kitty, she doesn't know that there's all this bugging and spying, and when she tells the Madame what's going on, the Madame breaks down. And what's very interesting is what she says is, she goes, they're all turning sex into something perverted, basically, and that sex is pure, so it's a very sex positive film, because it's saying that sex for pleasure is completely fine. And because of these Nazis are, like, repressing themselves and saying, oh no, it's purely to create children. They don't know how to be intimate. They don't know how to be tender. What we see is that some of the sex is homosexual in nature. For example, which was kind of a funny scene, where this one guy's with a prostitute, and he's projecting images of Hitler giving speeches over her against the wall, and then he gives her this big baguette that's shaped like a dildo, and he starts to perform fellatio on it as it's attached to her, as if she has this penis. And so, I always wondered why did some of these filmmakers depict Nazis as gay? And through my research, you found it was a metaphor, as a way to show that they were hypocrites, because they persecuted gay people. They hated gay people, and so to show them, and you see even some of the men are dressed in drag at certain points, and they're putting on these shows, and it's really to show that they're hypocrites. He's saying, oh, they even performed. It's meant to be less literal, as opposed to sort of saying that they're complete hypocrites, that they said one thing, but that some of them were gay. So, you see that in The Damned as well. Visconti insisted that a number of the Nazis. That's some of, I don't know how many he felt were gay, but you see that in The Damned as well, where he felt some were gay, and so he depicted it that way. And you see that in Salo as well. But it's to me it's meant to be taken less literally and more metaphorically. And so these are hard things to talk about. But nowadays a film like this could never get made. So what was going on in the psyche of these filmmakers at this time, where they were looking at the connection between Nazism and sex. It's hard to look at, right? And these are hard discussions to have, and these transgressive style of filmmaking. But this is what we see. So again, the film is this combination of sort of, I dare to call it erotic, but some of the scenes, sure, they can be quite erotic, and then some of it's not. But the one really tender scene is with Margarita and the Nazi who winds up killed, and he goes, "Oh, my whole life he just wants sex," right? And he says, "My whole life I've just been taught to hate," and so he wants this to be. She has shown him that oh wow, there's this other side of life, that like sex is like loving and it's tender, right? So again, it shows that intimacy and pleasure are positive things, not negative things, like the Nazis claim. But Helmut is his views on sexuality are as a way to spy, as to be purely transactional, and so he has these really deranged views, and again, it comes from their hypocrisy and their repression. And so because he falls for Margarita as well, what we see is that the Madame and her, because they're repulsed by what these Nazis are doing, they have this thirst for revenge. They find a way to record him, because he really falls for Margarita, and then he opens up to her, and he tells her that his wife is part Jewish, and then he opens up about his plans, which I mentioned earlier, which is to kill a lot of these Nazis. That everything we're telling people is an illusion, and this is about power, and his thirst for power is so strong that he wants to kill all of his allies, so it's almost saying that there's something worse than Nazism, if that's even possible. But that's what these characters are so horrible, are beyond evil. So it's really interesting, this film, because we have this mix of like a lot of these sex scenes mixed with this like really compelling story and an anti-Nazi message. I like you again, even the way he is killed, because then she goes and tells, she has it on tape what he said, and she goes and tells the other Nazis, and so they have him killed. And again, because of this quote unquote purity that they their ideology is aligns with, and when they look for him, they find him in a steam room, right, in these bathhouses, and again he's sweating everything out, and then they shoot him down, right? So it's quite a strong end, and then you see that how happy the women are as the credits roll, and the brothel is being torn down, and they're sort of they're celebrating this because they won, right? So it's interesting, in the sense we have women outsmarting men, and then we have this message about sex being positive, and that it's fine, that sex is pleasurable, and that's completely fine. And then at the same time, and a good thing, and then at the same time, where they're saying that Nazis are evil, Nazis are hypocrites, and they're more evil than you even thought they were, So it's really interesting how they managed to convey this in this very daring, transgressive way. With this, it's not like we go deeply into the psychology of these characters. It's, again, because there's a lot of sex in this movie, but it is this combination of having this strong message with this compelling story, but then having a lot of which Tinto Brass is known for, a lot of these really sort of sleazy sex scenes and such. But it's pretty interesting. So if you've seen the film, comment below. Let me know what you think. It's got great performances. I really liked Ingrid Thulin. Of course, we'll all know her from a lot of Bergman's movies. Helmut Berger is quite good. Of course, he worked with Visconti quite a lot. And Teresa and Savoy, who I hadn't seen in anything before. She's also really, really good. So once again, comment below. Let me know what you think of the film. And I hope that you've enjoyed this review. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. If this is your first time here, please consider subscribing by pressing the Robert Bellissimo at the Movies logo. You will see it floating above my head in the top left corner to your top left. In just a second, just click on that and then click the bell in order to get a notification every time I release one of my new episodes. It is absolutely free to subscribe. I want to thank all of my members on Patreon. If you are interested in becoming a member of my Patreon, I'd really appreciate the support. Please go to patreon.com/Robert Bellissimo at the Movies for full details. Thank you again, everyone, for watching, and I will see you all in the next episode.